are pretending to be the church, and it's targeted towards college students.
It is sneaky. If you want to dive into the cesspool, you can go to Reddit, ex-Mormon subreddit, and you can read this whole thread about this.
Why would the Q15 tell random members around the country or whatever about that we're thinking about this? No, they wouldn't do that.
There's very rare that they bring up a new, fresh point. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Okay, well, they brought up something new. Okay, this is really special. And I look into it, and it's totally nothing burger. Look, we have a incredibly deep gospel. It's not a shallow gospel. If this was a shallow gospel, sure, you can learn everything you want before you get baptized. But this is a deep gospel that you keep learning into your 80s and 90s until you die and beyond. Welcome to Sword of Laban. I'm here with Michelle, and we connected on the Ward Radio Discord about an email that we both received. This email, you can see here on the screen, it is sneaky, and we're going to break this thing down and talk about it. So it seems to be from the church. Well, maybe at first glance, especially when you're on your phone and you can't quite see like the headers, it's all truncated. And then as you start reading, it starts to become a little strange, and then it ends up being a very anti-Mormon document. So we're going to break this thing down and how deceptive it is and talk about it today. So, hey, Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself first. You're interested in this because you're a mom, right?
I am. I am a student through BYU Pathways at Ensign College. I'm just about to finish up with my schooling there, and opened up my school email, which I have never used for anything outside of school, and found this email in my inbox. I was kind of excited about it, like at first, because it's informed consent. That seemed really wise to me. I'm from a really small branch, and sometimes it freaks me out a little bit that our converts seem to not know anything about the gospel. And so I was like, yeah, gosh, this is good. Like, members should be helping these, investigators, and this is a good idea. But it did not take long before I realized that something was wrong. And the more I read, the more I got angry, because, if this came to my school email, that means someone had to target it in some way, because it's not just open to anybody.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I got mad.
Yeah, and a few others on the Ward Radio Discord were saying that they got it to their work email addresses. I personally got it to my personal Gmail address, and there's an ex-Mormon. If you want to dive into the cesspool, you can go to Reddit, ex-Mormon subreddit, and you can read this whole thread about this particular email. And some people are saying it's amazing that this was sent around, and I want to buy this guy an expensive dinner. And other people are saying this is actually really reflects poorly on us being anti-Mormons, because of how deceptive it is, right? And actually, as we'll dig into it, you'll find that it's actually quite poorly done, So do we really need to be making a big fuss about it? Well, I think we do, because next time it might not be so poorly done, and it might be pretty good.
Okay, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I think there is an element to someone on the Discord said, don't worry about it. Who cares? And I thought, I can get behind that notion, like just brush it off. But they are pretending to be the church, and it's targeted, at least in some way, towards college students. And that's underhanded. So I didn't like that so much.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so we have here the email. I'll read the first little bit here. And imagine that you're waking up on a Saturday morning, and you're a bit blurry-eyed and not quite fully awake. And on your phone, in the darkness, you see church-w, and then it's truncated. So you don't know. But it looks pretty official, because you don't see this header either. That's all kind of collapsed in Gmail. And then it says, church-wide program, informed consent. And first up, I was a little skeptical when I read informed consent, because that's a bit of a buzzword that is sometimes used by anti-Mormons, where the whole argument is, if only you knew about X, if only you knew about horses, steel swords, if only you knew this stuff, if only you knew about Joseph Smith's wives, you would deconvert. And we're going to talk about that later. Because I think that is totally fallacious. We're going to talk about that. I could rant for a long time, but let's keep reading. It says, dear brothers and sisters, and this is still Sleepy David, just waking up. Dear brothers and sisters, today we have an opportunity of spiritual importance and for thoughtful reflection. We all have been invited to participate in a new initiative, a prayerful and earnest effort to help members engage more deeply with church history and doctrine through faithful and transparent sources. And this already kind of comes off as like church speak, right? This is a familiar type
Mm-hmm.
of speak. And I
Yeah.
have seen emails from the church that say, you need to take this video training for like protecting youth and family or something. And I thought, well, maybe they came up with a new video training about like, I don't know, making sure your converts know things before they baptize. I don't know. So this is what's going through my
Yeah.
brain at this point, right? Same with you. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, prayerful
Yeah.
and earnest. That is lingo I'm familiar with as a
Yeah.
lifelong member of the church.
Yeah. Exactly. And as you may know, church leaders have, in recent years, encouraged greater access to contextual information about our history, from the publication of the Gospel Topics essays 11 to 12 years ago, to the ongoing work of the Joseph Smith Papers Project, and videos of President Nelson showing us how Joseph translated the Book of Mormon with his face in a white stovepipe hat. Okay, at this point, my alarm bells are going off a little bit because I don't know if there were videos of President Nelson showing us how we translated. But okay, we'll come back to that. We'll click on that link in a minute.
Yeah.
But hang on. And then I kind of scrolled to the bottom, like, what is this? Okay. Copyright Church History Society. That's a little bit weird. Church History Society, 1 East South Temple, Salt Lake City. That is the Church History Museum's address. I happen to know that. Um, so that's okay. And it looks pretty official here. You got to unsubscribe, and you are receiving this email because you opted in via our website. So, anyway, this is an initiative that has two primary goals: to ensure all converts are fully informed before baptism with clarity and honesty, so that their covenants are made with both heart and understanding; to invite all members to prayerfully study a short series of lessons that address common questions and misconceptions. So I'm still kind of thinking at this point, I don't know if I scrolled to the bottom at this point, but if I hadn't scrolled to the bottom, I would still be thinking, well, maybe there's just a video training and, it's part of the mission. I just got a new calling, and so I thought maybe this is part of
Yeah.
like the mission work or something. So, okay. But then you come down and then it starts dropping some bombshells. Below are multiple points with links to official church publications and sources. We strongly encourage you to
Yeah.
read prayerfully and with a spirit of discernment. If time is limited, you might choose to read the below summaries and return later to explore the footnotes and references more fully. We do not teach that we'll get our own planets. And okay, I like this. I'm like, okay, cool. We don't actually teach that. I
Yeah.
actually believe that we will be joint heirs with Christ, and Christ is going to create planets. I mean, he already did. He created this one. So he's going to create more.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I actually believe this, but we do not teach it, right? And that is true. That's a true statement.
Yes.
And then we are not becoming a god. And at this point, okay, I don't know about you. This is the point where my alarm bells are off. I'm like, hang on a minute. This isn't right. And so I click on the link. Anyway, we'll go there. At what point did the alarm bells go off for you?
So I at first on that last paragraph before the list started, it said if time is limited, you might choose to read the below summaries and return later to explore the footnotes and references more fully. And I was like, that is not okay. Like, I mean, and I thought that was weird. Like, why? Like, they would say, read it and study it out. Like, that's what the church would tell us, because our faith requires that we apply our intellect to things and study it out in our minds. And God gave us our minds for that reason. So they're not going to be like, just believe it and come back to it later. That's not the game, that we play.
Right.
So that kind of set me off a little bit there.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, it is, some parts of it are sounding a lot like something the church would say. In particular, well, and other parts are not, right? But in particular, there's this whole thing about the church is very transparent these days, and it's only becoming more transparent.
Yes.
Like, it's as fast as we can possibly digitize the Joseph Smith Papers, as fast as we can possibly make videos on our actually very amazing YouTube channels. If you haven't checked out the official church YouTube channels, there's several of them.
Yes.
Like, go and do that, because they're really good now. Like, they may not be coming along your feed, but the church is really making incredible articles, and the Q&As on your app. The app is incredible. The church is becoming incredibly transparent, and so it is within the realm of possibility that some sort of email like this might come, especially if you just got a new calling like I did, and I thought, well, maybe this is a missionary thing. So, it's a bit of a mix, but as we read further, we'll find that it really dives into some territory. It makes some crazy claims, and then it doesn't back those up at all. So I'd love to dive into some of those. But sorry, that was a bit of a rant, but
Let's do it.
I might have cut you off there. Let's do it. Yeah, first up here, most of these links actually take you to, oh, and of course the church logo at the top. I don't know if I pointed that out, but most of these links take you to
Yeah.
the actual, like, if I click on this link here, it'll take you to the gospel topics. There we go. Gospel topics essays, which are great. Mormons Christian, becoming like God, etc. This one here, this is ostensibly a video of President Nelson showing us how Joseph translated the Book of Mormon. Let's click on it. So it brings you to YouTube here, and it's just some random video that says YouTube is not currently available on this device. This is YouTube. YouTube is functioning on my device, but I'm looking at a video that says it's not available. It's like an error message. It's supposed to show you like, oh, well, okay, well, maybe my
What?
phone's not working at the
Wow.
moment, but I'm sure President Nelson actually reenacted that with his face in a hat. I'm sure that's there. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to the next thing here. And we scroll down, and we've got Church News FAQ, number 12 and number
What?
11. These actually don't take you to the Church News FAQ. We've got
They
this is
do
a link to
not.
the,
Yeah.
there's several links to the scriptures themselves, right? Yeah. But let's look at another one. I thought this
Yeah.
one was just rich. If we scroll to the bottom here, it says the brethren are slowly moving towards the idea of the Book of Mormon being
Oh.
an inspired work created by Joseph Smith rather than a literal history of ancient inhabitants of the American continent. This allows for him to have included so many
Yes.
ideas/stories from his immediate surroundings. Look, if you haven't quite paid attention in seminary and you're like a 17-year-old kid just about to go off to college and, you know, you're just like interested in girls or whatever, and you haven't really, and then you read all this stuff, you might be like, okay, yeah, well, maybe that's how it's going. You know, these days, this is just the modern way. We just, maybe the Book of Mormon's not really inspired. Maybe the brethren are doing this. So, but let's click on the links because it backs this up with, like, let's just click on the third one. On October 22nd, 2021, at a member gathering in Jordan, Elder David A. Bednar of the 12 said, "The
Yes.
Book of Mormon is not a book of history." Let's click on that link and let's read this in context. This is so disingenuous. So he said during the devotional, Elder Bednar encouraged attendees to study the Book of Mormon and to learn how it applies in our lives today. And he said, the Book of Mormon is not a book of history. The Book of Mormon is a book about the future. He's not saying this isn't
Oh my
historical.
gosh.
He's saying, I want
Yeah.
you people in front of me, to apply this to your futures and see where it takes you, right? This is very
Yeah.
disingenuous. Anyways,
This
I
flat
ranted a
out
bit.
dishonest. That was so dishonest.
It's totally okay. Like all these antis that say, "Oh, members of the church, they're so dishonest. They're not telling people stuff before they baptize. You need informed consent. You're so dishonest." Well, guess what? Guess who's dishonest now, huh? Right? So,
Yeah.
what parts
Well,
of this
and
stuck
I
out
think the
to
thing
you?
that was really the thing that was really upsetting to me about this one in particular is that anyone who has participated in the church for the past few years has seen the brethren testify of the Book of Mormon over the pulpit in general conference. I mean, Elder Holland, President Holland, I mean, he spoke about the Book of Mormon with love and faith and gratitude, and it was one of the most moving testimonies of the Book of Mormon I have seen in a long time. And so when I read that, I was like, first of all, why would the Q15 tell random members around the country or whatever about that we're thinking about this? No, they wouldn't do that. Like, I was like, they're not going to tell us that. Like, if they're having faith crisis, then, you know, whatever. But then also I was like, it directly contradicts everything we've heard from these men for ourselves.
Right.
And I guess they're just counting on people maybe not paying attention.
Yeah, it's people not paying attention, really. But let's be honest, it's actually it's the outliers, it's the fringe. It's like the lions preying on the herd, and they're just going to pick off a few of the weaklings from the outliers. I'm not saying, I'm saying spiritual weaklings in the sense that they haven't really put in the work, or maybe they're just young, they're just youngsters. They haven't actually been able to develop in the gospel yet. They're still growing.
Yes.
And that's what makes me mad, because it's those people that can't stand up for themselves. It's not going to affect you and me. We're going to obviously recognize this. Okay, it could have been done a little better, and some of the links could have actually worked. But in the end, this is preying on the weakest among us, the ones that need our defense. And that's why we're making this video. It's because sure, maybe it didn't work on you and me, but it'll work on some people, and next time it might work on more people.
Oh no. So I was just going to say that, like you said, the people, especially since there seem to be quite a few that got them on their school emails, on their church school emails. Like, I'm starting to work with youth. I haven't worked with youth for a long time, but when I hear their testimonies are sincere, but they're simple. You know, they don't like
Right.
they don't have all the answers to these things because that's not what their life is right now. So, like, their testimony is that Jesus loves them and he's there for them. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exactly stack up against someone who's chipping away purposefully and undermining their faith. And so, yeah, like when we say,
Right.
like you said, it's not the weakest in a bad way. It's the ones that we want to protect. Yep.
Yes, 100%. I agree. So the end, if you hadn't read all of these outrageous things above, which we skipped over, all these outrageous claims, the end
Yep.
sounds very fatherly or motherly, like it's just very like I care for you. But because I have read all that stuff and because I know this whole thing's a fraud, the end to me sounds very what's the word?
Patronizing?
The end sounds yes, the end sounds very patronizing. Exactly. Let's read it. Brothers and sisters, we know that studying these topics may be challenging. Yet we invite you to approach them with faith, humility, and a sincere desire to understand. And by the way, these topics, we skipped over all of them, but let me just list off a few. Just think of any old regular gish gallop of anti-Mormon stuff about endowment ceremony, Book of Abraham, Joseph Smith's wives, um, horses is probably in here, steel swords is probably in here,
Oh,
etc.
yeah.
You know, the stuff. The Lord has asked us to seek learning even by study and also by faith. And in the link to the actual D&C verse, we are moving forward, always striving to align our lives with the teachings of the Savior and the guidance of his apostles. As we embrace this learning together, we trust that our understanding will deepen, our hearts will grow, and our testimonies will become stronger. The brethren have expressed their deep desire that these discussions will continue in our homes. You see how sneaky this is? Like, it's sounding like
Yeah.
this is authoritative, that they're speaking on behalf of the brethren. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
and
so
and
disgusting.
furthermore, they yeah, it's disgusting. And it's this paragraph. Let me just finish reading it. It's basically saying, why don't you take all this stuff and discuss it among your families, among your
Yeah.
wards, and among everyone. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so to know this information, meaning all these things above, and to not share it amongst those who have devoted their lives to our beautiful faith would indeed be profoundly immoral. You know, so I thought that was just rich. The end of that right there.
Yeah. I felt like, I'm like, are you talking to Jehovah's Witnesses here? Like, are you, like, because, you can't really guilt us with the whole, if you don't share this, it's immoral. Like, no, we do the missionary thing, but we don't succumb to that.
Right.
I'm going to hell if I don't share the gospel. I was like, wrong church, dude. Wrong people.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And whoever wrote this obviously knows a lot about the church and speaks as if they're one of us. I mean, like here, the brethren, and further up here, it's like our endowment ceremony and so on. Of course, they speak about Masonic things. The problem is, look, each one of these has been debunked again and again. This is just another CES letter. For those of you that don't know,
Yeah.
years ago, there was somebody that wrote a letter called the CES letter. It has essentially the same talking points and it has been debunked again and again and again. Every single talking point has a reasonable explanation. But once you receive a
Yeah.
gish gallop of all these things, you're not necessarily going to be able to grapple with each one because you're going to be hit with the next one and the next one and the next one. And it takes a long time to kind of get to the bottom of the cup once you're
Yeah.
being drinking from a fire hose here. But each one of these has, has a reasonable explanation and it requires a lot of work. And look, the way I think about it is you don't need to know everything before you baptize, from my opinion. You need to have a certain level of faith, sure. You need to have a certain level of
Mm-hmm.
knowledge about things, sure. But to require, it's an unreasonable standard to require people to know 100% of everything before they're baptized. It's just unreasonable, right, to ask.
Agreed.
So I don't know. I think look, we have a incredibly deep gospel. It's not a shallow gospel. If this was a shallow gospel, sure, you can learn everything you want before you get baptized. But this is a deep gospel that you keep learning into your 80s and 90s until you die, and presumably beyond. And so, like, it's just going to be unreasonable to expect that we wait until we understand it all to get baptized. Like that baptism, that's an act of faith upon incomplete knowledge, and we move forward and we learn more things as we go. And once we encounter something that's a little bit troubling, well, that's where our faith gets tested, and then we need to dig a little bit. And for me, at least, this stuff is now boring to me. Honestly, when I see an anti-Mormon video,
Yeah.
it's always the same. There's very rare that they bring up a new, fresh point. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Okay, well, they brought up something new. Okay, this is really special. And I look into it, and it's totally nothing burger, right? But
Yes.
usually, it's so boring. And compare that with listening to, I don't know, Stick of Joseph or something, where my mind is blown, or just reading the scriptures, or reading, or just like in Sunday school, my mind is continually blown when I study righteous and faithful things, and my mind is continually bored at this point. It took me a while to get here, but my mind is bored when I
Yeah.
study these kinds of things. So there's something different about anti-Mormon arguments, which is night and day to me. I don't know. Is that how you feel too?
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too is it's draining on my soul to struggle against the disingenuous nature of it. It's
Right.
frustrating to confront these arguments and these, this evidence they have, and we say, well, no, here's the evidence, to proving you wrong, and they're like, nope, nope, that's not how it is. Nope, sorry, you don't know. And then they just kind of try and rehash or move away from the argument. I've seen that a lot
Yeah.
lately, where, oh gosh, I think it was Hayden Carroll just did a debate or something with some Protestant guy, and it was infuriating. I'm sorry, Hayden. I'm sure you're very talented. I didn't make it all the way through because it was, he was saying, "Well, no, here's the proof," and the guy was like, "Oh, well, you're just moving the goalposts, and oh, you're doing this," and I was like, "Okay, you are intellectually dishonest," and it was very frustrating. So, like you, I
Mm-hmm.
find this, these arguments that they just keep bringing up over and over again exhausting, and I'm like, move on to something else. Yeah, anyway.
Yes. 100%, right? But I think I get why they feel this way. Having talked to my own personal friends that are close to me, a few of them have left the church. And in particular, I'm thinking of one person in particular that seems to have the following belief in their mind. If you, meaning me, only knew about X, you would leave the church. Like X could be steel swords or horses or Book of Abraham.
Yeah.
Like if you only knew, if you only read this thing about Joseph Smith's wives, oh boy, you'd leave the church because and like I don't, right? so like
Yeah.
so then it turns into, well, you're just not being open enough. Like if you only were open enough to this, then you leave the church. It's just a matter of like, there's this factoid that exists outside of you. If you could just put this inside of you, then you would leave the church. And I think that's totally wrong. Like, okay, let's take one of those things. Book of Abraham. I don't know. If you only knew the stuff about the Book of Abraham that I'm about to tell you, then you'd leave the church. Well, guess what? There's a ton of people that know all there is to know about the Book of Abraham, and they don't
Yeah.
leave the church. So that if then statement is false. There's more to it than that.
Yes.
Like you have such a shallow understanding of things if that's your if then statement, because obviously that if then statement doesn't always hold. So what are you doing? Like you're missing a
Yes.
big point. There's something else. There's a missing piece of the puzzle that you just haven't got, and you so your if then statement needs another piece in it, right? So that is
Yeah.
kind of like makes me a little frustrated because there's such a flat 2D view of things as opposed to it's way more complicated than that. Okay, it's not just that simple if-then statement. yeah,
Well, and I
and
don't
then
understand why the other side, so like the antis, and so Protestants, evangelicals, they can look at their faith and their understanding of faith and feel that it's rich and deep and, has layers. And but then they look at our faith and they say, nope, it can't. Because we say, they say, you think you're going to be a god, and we say, okay, well, it's rich and deep and has layers, and
mhm.
and they're like, nope, it can't. It's either you think you're a god or you aren't. And then just so all of these things have context to them that they don't allow us to have, but they get context for their Trinitarian beliefs, for their creeds. You know, they get all the context. We don't deserve that, I guess. It's
Yes,
frustrating.
it is frustrating, and I really love the depth of other religions. To be honest, I love interfaith stuff. I love going to other churches on, say, like an interfaith Thanksgiving. I love watching a bunch of evangelical and Catholic YouTube videos. I love the depth that they get into. And then I just don't get why they don't love that about us as well. I think it's maybe because it's just
Yes.
a little too different. It's just a little uncomfortable. It takes everything they know and makes them think that maybe they just don't quite know it all, because there's some other things that aren't quite as, proves it's not quite as tidy as they maybe want to believe in terms of like biblical
Yeah.
interpretation, right? So anyways, we probably don't need to go through every single point here. If you want to pause the screen and read it, you're welcome to, for anyone that's watching. But honestly, it's the same old. It's the same old. And so, I don't know. We might end it here. In the end, look, for me, it goes back to that these are the same old tropes. They're boring. You can look into them, and you probably should. I mean, you don't necessarily need to if you're living a happy life and you've got great faith and a good family, and you don't need to. But if these things trouble you, look into them, because there is a reasonable explanation for each one of these, and at least for me, there is a lot to be learned. Right? It's you start out with the level of, oh, the Joseph Smith copied the Masons, and that looks really bad. And if you study it, you end up at a totally different level that gives you a totally new understanding about how God might teach his children, right? And what does that mean? What does that mean for how I teach my children? I mean, you kind of are able to
Yes.
learn and grow through the difficult questions if you need to. You don't need to tackle the difficult questions
Yes.
if they're not difficult to you, right? If you're just fine with it, cool. But there are reasonable answers to these. I can testify of that. I've found many of them myself. I am not an expert on everything and anything, but I've consistently found that there are reasonable answers to every single one of these. And yeah, I find it interesting to study, but I find it way more interesting to just study faithful things, that like the scriptures and the words of the prophets, and you'll find your mind blown far more frequently with those things than you will like going down some rabbit hole about Masonic rituals in the temple, right? That's how I see it. Yeah, anything
Yes.
else you want to say to finish it up?
Yeah, I would say so. When I was a teenager, or I don't remember how old I was. I was younger when the CES letter came out, and
Mhm.
honestly, I was afraid to read it. I was afraid of what I would find there and if it would challenge my faith. And I didn't have the like adrenaline junkie desire to like tackle that sort of thing. Um, as an adult now, I have been so blessed to have found faithful sources that have helped me gain a deeper understanding of how to defend my faith. For me, it started in 2020. Actually, I found Ward Radio, which led to Stick of Joseph. It led to your channel. It's led to many other channels, Quick Media, and they have provided amazing resources. So I would just say to anyone watching, this is borderline ridiculous, but it's underhanded, and it's desire. It obviously has the desire to lead people astray, and so I would just say don't be afraid, because our numbers are small, but for those of us defending the faith of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and trying our best to be disciples and to spread the gospel in the world, there are resources for you, people that have put in good work, and if you can just search them out and spend a little bit of time, you will find yourself strengthened in amazing ways, and you will be able to join the ranks of the army that's fighting for Zion.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I just love that there's this explosion of new LDS resources, and that it's not coming from the church. I don't expect the church to fight
no.
every battle. I don't expect to find all my answers from the church. I do expect to use that as my north star and my guiding principle when I'm listening to somebody that's just some random person on the internet, right? But at the same time, I love that there's this explosion of not just YouTube videos, but of books and like light and knowledge and
Yeah.
realization of biblical history through archaeology, that now we're realizing things that just seemed so certain before, but now we're realizing it's actually quite the opposite. And in terms of how the history played out and the Deuteronomic reform and all these things, I just love this. We're living in a really cool time, and it's not the sort of time you
Yes.
really want to be
Yeah.
bogged down with these kinds of gish gallop of things when you can be feasting upon all the other things we had before us.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yeah.
probably we'll
Put
end
it put
there,
it to
but
rest.
we've kind of beaten this horse to death. Yes, we've
Yeah,
beaten this to death, but it's been fun beating it to death anyway. So I wonder,
it has.
please comment below if you received this email, or even if you haven't. How did you approach things like this, like the CES letter? And does anything that we're saying ring true to you? Let us know below. For now, this is Michelle and Sort of Living out.